Hello everyone, welcome to SYNTHFOX channel. This is Astro, and today I will be presenting you my new module called Passive Tools 1. It's a collection of 4 separate passive submodules built in 4 HP. The first section is called Mash. It has 2 inputs and 1 output, and the output is a interwinded, esoterically version of the first 2 inputs. Then we have an OR section, which has 2 inputs and 1 output, and the output is the maximal of the 2 voltages present at these 2 inputs. The MORE section is a half-wave rectifier, as in the output is the input with the negative section removed, and the HPF section is a high-pass filter with 3 preset cutoff frequencies selectable with this toggle switch. The first 3 submodules operate with both CVs, audio rate signals, and gates or triggers. The high-pass filter section will always output a DC decoupled signal, although it can be used with gates and CVs as well as audio signals. Musically, it's only useful with audio. Let's look at them one by one, starting with the mesh part of the module. Let's connect 2 triangle waves from the Doepfer standard VCOs to it. This one and this one. Let's hear how they sound before passing them to the module. This is one. This is the other. Now let's put them into the mesh section of our Passive Tools 1. And the output goes to the output mixer. As you may have noticed, it got gnarly pretty damn fast. Behind the mash portion of the module is a transistor and a diode setup, kind of a slightly esoterical passive circuit, which creates a combination of the signals and acts slightly ring modulator-ish, but there's nothing that actually is ring modulator. Actually, it's kind of close to the XOR element, although it will not produce the correct XOR result when the gates are passed into it. Let's see how it works. We'll use 2 square waves, 2 square wave LFOs, and then we will pass them into the filter as an audio input, and the output goes to the mixer. Right now the 2 square waves are kind of interwinded and passed as the audio input to our filter, creating an interesting rhythmic pattern. It can, of course, as well act as an LFO processor, or any other CV actually. Let's listen to this sine wave oscillator and then reassign the inputs to the triangle waves, and the output of the mash will be controlling the pitch. Next up on the module is the OR section, which selects the maximal of the 2 voltages on the input and passes it to the output. The easiest way to demonstrate it is again to use the sine wave VCO and process some LFOs. Let's use 2 triangle LFOs from the quad LFO module, put them into the OR as the inputs, and then let the output control the VCO. Let's hear how it sounds. Let's make one faster, and then the other slower. Not that slow. As you can hear, when this LFO goes high, then this LFO almost has no control over the pitch, but when it's low, this LFO is audible and acts to its full range. It can of course be used to process sound as well, and let's try it out with some triangle waves of the A100-1. Much cleaner than the mesh section, way less esoterical, way less gnarly. Although it still shows some peaks and troughs of the frequency ratio between the two signals. As in, the detune sounds differently from what we would get if we just mixed them. Next up is the least sophisticated part of the module called more, and what it does is it removes the negative part of the signal and just lets the positive part of it pass. Acts like a half-wave rectifier. It's mostly useful for converting a bipolar square wave-like signal into a gate signal, which goes from 0 to the maximum voltage, or using it to remove the negative part of your CV. But it can also be used for audio to kind of enhance the harmonics content. Let's check both of these ways of operation. First we will listen to the sine wave oscillator, and then let's actually listen to it controlled by the LFO first. Plain and usual, nothing special. But then we will put it into the more input, come out of the more output. Now you can hear how the positive part of the LFO does its job, but the negative is simply removed, leaving the oscillator hang on the same frequency while it's happening. Making it a bit slower so you can hear it. It's also possible to enrich the harmonically poor signals and make them slightly sharper using this section. For example, we will take the sine wave of the QZ-VCO, pass it to the more input, and take the more output directly to the mixer. As you can hear, the output is more harmonically rich than the input. You've just heard it. This is a plain simple sine wave, but this is a more complex signal already. And last but not least, we have the high-pass filter module, which is a very useful and underrated tool in musical world, especially in the modulars. It has an input, an output, and a frequency selector, which lets you select between 3 cutoff frequencies. The middle one is the lowest one and lets most of your signal pass. Then on the left is the middle cutoff frequencies. It's higher than the one in the middle position of the toggle switch. And on the right is the highest cutoff frequency available, which will let only the highest frequencies of your signal pass through. So let's test it on some white noise. First we will listen to the plain white noise to the output. Now let's listen to it through the high-pass filter. Now it's it's in the middle position, so the cutoff frequency is the lowest. Right now it's in the left position, so the cutoff frequency kind of raised, and you can hear how the signal got quieter and less bassy. And on the right side, it is barely audible because only the highest frequencies squeeze through. This tool is especially useful for the mixdown of your patch, because usually people would have a rumbling bass and would like to overlay a synth line, for example, or something else over it, and they would overlap frequency-wise and sound really dirty and nasty. But then with the high-pass filter you can neatly lay things together in the mix. For example, I have this really bassy sawtooth going on, and I want to overlay some white noise over it. It's not dirty together. White noise covers all the frequency range, so you cannot hear either the sawtooth or the white noise properly. But now let's pass it through the high pass filter thingy. And voila! Sounds much cleaner now. Let's try the other cutoff frequency. This one is my favorite for white noise. Barely audible at this one, but sometimes still will be useful. The high-pass filter section is the only section of this module which is designed mainly for audio purposes and nothing else. The mesh or and more submodules can be used with both gates, audio signals and CV signals, but the high-pass filter will always output a DC decoupled signal, although you can try using it with CVs and gates. For example, passing a square wave LFO through it will create some peaks, plucky envelopes at the output, which are musically useful for pinging the filters. For example, and then we could use, for example, the mesh section to combine two of these gates and use them to create a cool pattern with the filter bongo. So there you have it, Passive Tools 1, 4 submodules in 4 HP, completely passive, very interesting, lots of ways to have fun and explore all the musical stuff around you. Thank you for joining me today. I've been Astro, and it is SYNTHFOX channel. See you soon. Goodbye.